All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon from wherever you are. First of all, welcome to Power Platform Festival, which we celebrate every year with as Global Power Platform Bootcamp. And I'm pleased to welcome you all to attend this overall bootcamp. This is the 2 day bootcamp that we have. Today we have 3 sessions, and tomorrow we have a full day event. So I wish everyone can gain a lots of knowledge related Power Platform from today and tomorrow's sessions. So this event is hosting virtually. So all the things are happening from the YouTube live as well as Teams live. So you can always see the videos on the backtrack as well. We will upload the recording after the event. So I prefer everyone to be with us throughout these 2 days and enjoy the event, full event with us. So today, before we get started, I just want to introduce with our organizers. So me, myself, Dhruvin Shah, I have Abhinav Singh, Rajendra Ongole, Prince Kar, and Aro Shukla with us. So we are 5 organizers, and with respect to global Power BI Delhi user group, we are having this event organized. So without me talking more, let me just start the session starting with our first session. And I would like to welcome Nanddeep and Smita for the first session of the event. Hey Nanddeep, hey Smita.
Hey, hi Dhruvin. Thank you for having us. Hopefully you are seeing my screen.
Yep, I can see
Yeah,
your
all
screen.
right. Okay,
Yeah, we
sure.
can see it's awesome. Yeah. This Aru here, Nanddeep and Smita.
Hey, hi
I'm
Aro.
really,
How
yeah.
are you?
How are
Hello,
things with you
hello.
guys? Yeah.
Yeah, after a long time, right?
Great. Yeah. I just want to. I know we have this custom to have introduce everyone. So I just want to ask you guys, like, how things with you?
Oh, yeah, miss, at least with us, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So
we are doing good, doing good. So at
yeah,
least today
great.
we are
Yeah,
speaking at this GPPB Delhi chapter. Tomorrow
yeah.
we are going to organize one at Pune, but that one will be in person. So
Awesome.
if you are in Pune or around, I will invite all of you to the Pune Tech Community's Global Power Platform Bootcamp. Okay.
Great. Yeah.
Yep.
I just attended the session in Singapore. I mean, Singapore Global Platform, they have this
Mm.
boot camp in morning.
Yeah.
So I attended, and now I'm just doing one more session here with the Delhi user group. So Nanddeep and Smith, I just want to ask you, right? Now you're talking about building the custom connectors. Now these connectors can be used by the citizen developers, or we need pro dev to use these things. It's just a brief. Is it like a usage? Is it for the low
Correct.
code
Correct.
developers or for the pro code? So just share your thoughts on this.
Yeah, sure. So at least these custom connectors, they are nothing but kind of an wrapper around the APIs that you have got. So yeah, to build these custom connectors, you will need some kind of an pro code skills. But to use that, you can be just a low code, no code developer, and then you should be able to use it. So all those are available here. Probably I'm going to show that during my demo as well. But once you
Sure.
go to the connectors, here you should be able to see all of those connectors which are available to built customly by the community and available here. Only thing is like all these are under the premium category, but at least this will give you flexibility to connect to various services, which probably not possible when you are when you want to do something customizedly, right? But yeah, to develop those, you will need at least
Pro code. Yeah.
pro code.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So again,
Yep.
stage is all yours, and then you can. I just keep quiet, and then we lead to all the people who are attending session. You can raise questions and all, and towards and both the experts, Nanddeep and Smita, they will answer your questions. So again, Nanddeep, Smita, stage is all yours now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank
Thank you very
you.
much for the introduction. And hello all, welcome to Global Power Platform Bootcamp, which is being organized by Delhi Power BI User Group. And we are here to showcase the demonstration about how to build the custom connectors for Power Platform. So even though, let's say, for example, if you are not a pro code, don't worry, we are not going to go into the complex code because myself, I don't know how to do the complex coding. Okay, so we'll keep it very simple but effective, that how For example, if you have got any code which is running onto any of the API and you want to consume those kind of functionalities through Power Platform, how you are going to do that? By building your own custom connector, right? And again, if you want, even you can make it available for the entire community for their benefit. So even during this demo, we are going to demonstrate one of such connectors that me and Smita have built together, which is for Sessionize. Okay, so that is all that we are going to cover in this 1 hour. But before that, this global power platform is happening across all of the global locations, which is being joined by almost 78 locations across the globe. Delhi is one of that, and then again we are also organizing one at Pune in person tomorrow. So if you are in Pune or around, feel free to join us there as well. But again, based on your location, find out the place where this global Power Platform is happening and try to attend those, because there you will get to see lot many other low code, pro code, no code developers like you, other or else even the speakers will be speaking around um, various kind of topics during this event. All right, so just to give you some more information about this, you can socialize, interact, and communicate with all of those GPPB handlers. So here is the YouTube channel, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn account for them. So if you want to get more information about the events happening or more information from GPPB, these are few of the good social media channels through which you will be able to connect with them. All right. So then even another thing which is coming out of JPPB is that fill out this survey and you still hold a chance to win some cool swags for you. Okay. So there is a link that is being shown here, or else even you can use this scanner code or QR code to scan and then participate yourself into that swag competition. All right. Okay. So without further delay, let's quickly get started with the session. Myself, Nanddeep Nachan, I'm Microsoft MVP for M365 apps and services. I mostly worked on Microsoft 365 related apps and services, Power Platform, Microsoft Azure, as well as I'm Microsoft certified trainer. And then this is another badge that I have got here, which you can see on the screen. I will be explaining in bit depth onto it when we will come to the later part of the session. But this one is some kind of an PNP independent publisher badge that you will get when you are creating your own custom connectors and making it available for the entire community. Apart from that, I'm author of 3 books on SharePoint as well as Microsoft Viva Connection. So if you are interested to read out, here are those books. And then onto the right hand side, here are few of the social media handlers through which you will be able to get in touch with me. And with me today, we have Smita.
Hello, all. Myself Smita Nachan. I am from Pune, India. I am M365 consultant, having total 14 plus years of experience. I am a speaker as well as author of these 2 books, which are published with A Press for last more than 2 years. I'm a Microsoft MVP for M365 development category. Apart from that, I am a Microsoft certified trainer. And as Nanddeep mentioned over here, yes, I am also independent publisher. We will explain more details in our session. And these are some of my social handlers by which you can get in touch with me.
All right, so with that, let's start with what we are going to cover in this session. So the agenda for this session is like we will have an overview of what is mean by custom connector, how we can go ahead and consume any of the API as a custom connector, how we can go ahead and create those custom connectors. And again, for example, if you have your code, so it could be a legacy code or it could be a newly developed code, which act as an Azure API, how that can be converted to a custom connector. And then lastly, we are going to demonstrate one of the custom connector that we have built for Sessionize, which will help you to even arrange your events better. All right, so let us start with custom connectors overview. So simply like what is mean by custom connector is the connector is something like a proxy or kind of a wrapper around the APIs, which allows Power Automate, Power Apps, as well as even Logic Apps in Microsoft Azure to communicate with the underlying service that you have developed or any of the other party has exposed. So this connector help make very much easier for the apps and flow makers like us to connect to other apps, data, and the devices in the cloud. So this is a simple definition of the custom connector. So next thing is now that we need to identify like when there is a need to create a custom connector. So let's say, for example, if you are just building some app or flow which is consuming data from SharePoint, OneDrive, or SQL Server, we do have all those connectors available with us. So at least Power Platform gives more than 250 plus kind of an connectors which we have readily available. But what about the APIs that we build for our organization, or maybe there are some other data which is lying outside of the Microsoft system, or maybe for which the connectors are not available in Power Platform. So in that cases, what we can simply do is that we can build the logic around those APIs available, which is at the core of everything. We can build that connector, and then simply we can go ahead and use those connectors in Power Automate, Power Apps, as well as Logic Apps. So this entire process has been splitted into four major steps. So first one is we just need to identify, like, is there a need to go ahead and create a custom connector, or can we use any of the existing connector to go ahead, connect to our system or service, get the data from there. Okay, so that is the major thing that we have got. We are going to even deep dive into that. And then again, next thing, for example, if there is a need to go ahead and create your own custom connector, then how we'll be able to describe all of those APIs that we want to expose through our connector. And then once we are done with that, we need to go ahead, use that connector. And then lastly, the optional step is that if you have the connector, why not make it available for everyone as an open source, and then everyone will be able to use that directly. All right, so let us go into these four steps in detail.
So let's see how we can just define the connector. So the first one is you have to identify or build the API. So your first task is to check the connector reference to determine if the suitable connector already exists for this API or service. And if a suitable connector does not already exist, then you can make your own custom connector. Then you have to describe the API. So for the Power Apps and Power Automate to discover what triggers and actions are available from the API, you must identify them when you create your custom connectors. The third thing is you have to use your connector. So after custom connectors are created in an environment, they can be used in the same ways as built-in connectors. They can be built in one environment, exported, and can be used in other environments also. Then the last one is to certify and share the connector as an open source. So, because the custom connectors are only available in the environments where their definition exists, so they are not available to other Microsoft customers. So, by sharing a custom connector definition as an open source, you make it available on GitHub for other customers to import into their environments. So, certifying a connector requires that you own the API or have explicit permission to publish a connector from the API owner.
All right, so now that we know a basic theory of what is meant by custom connector, when to go for the custom connectors, now let us see like from where we'll be able to create those, or from where we'll be able to access those. So for that, I will quickly go into my Power Automate environment. So this is the Power Automate window. If you just browse to make.powerautomate.com, you'll be taken to this page. And then all of the connectors that we use to get the data to the flow or to the apps, you will be able to see it here. So these are all the connectors which are available here, are these out of the box connectors. At the same time, for example, if you go under data and then look out for this option called as custom connectors. So all of the custom connectors that you have built in this environment, or at least you're consuming from anywhere else, they will be shown at this point, right? So once you open up the Power Automate, browse to the data and custom connectors, and this is a place from where you will be able to go ahead and then create or define your custom connector. So like then what is needed to define your custom connector? Okay, so once I click on this new custom connector, we have got various options here. First thing is create from blank. Then we have got option for Azure service. Even we can use any of the open API file, that means a Swagger kind of a file. Even we can create a Postman collection, for example, if your APIs are complex, and in that case, there may be a set of APIs that you want to expose as an connector. In that case, you can go ahead, create the Postman collection, and then you will be able to use that. And then last option is very much interesting. If you just click on this import from GitHub, and there is a link which will take you to the open source repository. Okay, I should have opened that in the new window. Just give me one moment. So it is the place wherein you will be able to see all of the custom connectors which are built for the community. And even if you want to go to the code of that, you will be able to see it here. So all of the custom connector as well as the independent publisher connectors, they are available here. So if you want to directly go ahead, consume any one of that, we will be able to go ahead and use that. But let us quickly see like what is the significance of each of those, and then how those can be created.
So let's take the first one, that is a create from blank, define the connector. So when using this approach, you would use the API documentation and example of inputs and outputs and then define each action and trigger. So this approach is a good for simple APIs where you don't have the ability to import the definition. So you can also use this approach to refine the definitions after you import them. Second one is the export from Azure. So if your API is built as an Azure App Service, Microsoft Azure Functions, or is managed by Microsoft Azure API Management, you can export from those services and it will automatically create the initial custom connector definition. The third one is import open API definition. So Open API is a specification that describes the REST, so simplifying the task of developing and consuming an API by effectively mapping all the resources and operations that are associated with it. And the many services API publish an open API definitions, and you can import it to describe the API in the custom connectors. So the importing version 2.0 is supported, but the version 3.0 is not currently supported. And this approach is beneficial if an open API definition is available from the API publisher, or if you are developing the API, you can publish the one. The last one is the import Postman collection. So the Postman is a tool for testing the REST APIs. So you can use this tool to perform the actions on the API that you want to describe and then save them as a Postman collection. So this collection is then imported to describe the API in the custom connector. And currently you can use this approach with V1 collections.
Okay, so let us see like how we'll be able to build out the custom connector from blank. So let's say you want to start from a blank canvas. Probably you don't have the open API file, or you don't have the Postman collection. In that case, you can simply go ahead with import from blank. You can just name your connector. So I will just call it as a connector one. Okay, good name. So I can just click on continue. So once you do that, this is the place wherein you will be able to define your entire collection, sorry, entire collector. So first thing is that, for example, if you want to give some icon to your connector, in that case you will be able to upload that icon. It could be a PNG or JPG file which should be less than 1 MB, so that it can act as an icon. So let's say, for example, if you're building custom connectors for your organization, probably you can have the organization logo here, so that it will give some kind of an authenticated feeling to the users while they will see all those custom connectors in their list. The second thing is always preferable that you can go ahead and use the PNG kind of an icons, so that they will provide you the transparent background, and then you can have the background color specified here, so that whenever that transparent image will be on top of the background color that you have specified, it will give some nice look and feel to your users. Another important thing here, which is not a required field, but still gives more meaning when you are defining your custom connector, is the description. Because let's say we, even though we name our custom connector, there might be some confusions in the users who are going to use this connector, like what does this connector exactly do. So in that case, if you specify good amount of description here, detailed description here, so that there won't be miss at least all of the queries from your users who are trying to use or consume that custom connector will be answered, will be a good win for you. The other thing that we have got here is this on-premises data gateway. So let's say, for example, you want to consume your data from the on-premises systems or services that you have got running. In that case, you can go ahead with those on-premises data gateway. You need to install that on-premises data gateway, and then checking this box will help you to connect to your on-premises data as well. The other thing that we have got here is the scheme, like do you want to expose all of the HTTPS APIs that you have got built, or just the HTTP APIs? So decide like how your APIs are being developed, or at least how those have been deployed, or how what kind of an APIs that you want to go ahead and consume. So you can define that as an host. Okay, so probably I will just type it here as api.contoso.com, and then base URL is like, for example, whenever we are creating any kind of an APIs, mostly Azure architects, they want to have some APIs sitting behind a certain URL path so that they will be able to secure the access to that path. So for example, if it is a case, you will be able to specify that as a base URL here. So let's say, for example, api.contoso.com/API, or maybe some kind of an other base URL that you have got. So this is the basic things that those will be needed when you want to go ahead and create your connector. So now that we just have given the basic information about what is the name of the custom connector, and then what is the host that it is going to consume. But whenever we go for creation of the custom connector, the major thing here is the authentication, like how we are going to authenticate against the API which is running behind this custom connector. So there we have got multiple options. No authentication, that means we don't need any kind of an authentication. Directly anyone on the in this world will be able to hit that API endpoint and able to consume that. Then we have a basic authentication, which means just the username, password, and we'll be able to get authenticated. Or we can just use any kind of an API key through which we'll be able to get authenticated ourselves, or we can use any kind of an OAuth 2.0, which is the industry standard protocol for any kind of an authentication. But maybe let's spend some time discussing about what is the significance of each of these authentication type.
So the custom connector architect supports working with authenticated API. So when you define the custom connector, you will identify how it should authenticate to the API, and the authentication choices support the anonymous, password protected, OAuth 2.0, and the API key access. So let's see one by one them. So no authentication, that means this choice is for the APIs that allow anonymous access, and it is the default. So if you don't configure a specific authentication type, the second one is the basic authentication. So this choice is for the APIs that require a user and password to be sent with each request. The third one is the API key. So an API key is a token that a client provides when making API calls. The API publisher typically provides the key, and it must be included in each request from the custom connector. The last one is OAuth 2.0. So the OAuth 2.0 is the industry standard protocol for authorization. So this option can be configured for any API that uses OAuth 2.0, and the pre-built configurations are available for you to select from for Microsoft services like Azure Active Directory, Azure AD, GitHub, and Azure DevOps. So similar pre-built configurations are available for other services like Dropbox, Slack, Stripe, and more. The pre-built configurations simplify what you need to provide to configure the identity provider.
All right, so with that, let's go into another demo and see how we'll be able to at least create a custom connector. So in this demo, I will assume that most of us are low code, no code kind of developers. And there is someone who is a pro code developer who has helped you to create the API at your organization. Or maybe if you are working with a vendor and that vendor has given you some kind of an API. Now that it is your role as a pro code or no code kind of an developer to go ahead, define a connector around that API which is exposed by your organization or by your vendor, and then you will be able to use that in Power Apps or Power Automate. All right. So with that, what I will do is I will just discard this part, and then we will start from the clean slate. Okay. So we know that if you want to go ahead, create a new custom connector, this is the place from where we'll be able to start, and then go ahead and create the connector like blank from open API file, that is Swagger or Postman collection. So for this demonstration, I have got one website which is available directly from Microsoft, which is contosoinvoicing.azurewebsites.net. So this one is just the API which is built on top of Azure. Even from this hosting, you can see that this one is pointing to azurewebsites.net, and which is for the invoicing kind of an platform built by Contoso. So let's say, for example, Contoso is your organization or maybe your partner organization, and you want to consume all those APIs from there. So to create the good looking APIs, what are the three things needed? First thing is the API documentation, which is available here, which will give us this kind of an documentation about what are the API endpoints available, which we will be able to consume when we want to get the data from other systems or services like this into the Power Apps or Power Automate, or maybe into the entire Power Platform. So this is one example of how the good looking documentation looks. So let's say, for example, we have various operations available here like add invoice, get invoice, and list invoice, and many more. So what as a low code or no code developer we can do is we can just look into this, like what are the expected input parameters, what is the expected body for this, and then once we will send out the response, what kind of an sorry, whenever we'll send out the request, what kind of a response that we are going to get. So in this case, we will probably start with the very basic one, list, which is a get kind of a thing. So let's say we want to just test it out, what kind of an invoices it is going to send to us. So from by looking at this definition, you can see that we do have I just click on try it out. So you can see that we do have some kind of an input parameter specified here, but all of those are optional. So even without specifying those, we can go ahead, list out all the invoices without applying any kind of an filtering here. So I'll just go ahead, click on execute. And then from here, you can see that, okay, we are not authorized. So that means this one is expecting some kind of an authentication. Since we have not yet authenticated, it is not going to help us to get the data from there. So in that case, what we can do is we can just quickly go ahead and try to authorize. So this one is the API key based authentication. So let's say again, if I go here, this is that API key kind of an authentication, right? So what we can do now is that this documentation provide us another API key. So I will just copy this API key from here, go back to the Swagger one more time, and then click authorize. So now that we have the API authentication done, now that I will go back and try to execute this one more time. And okay, still unauthorized. Let me just authorize it one more time and do it another time. Okay, all right. So still, okay, now that you can see that this one is giving us the success, and then these are all of the invoices that we get. Okay, so this API does need at least API key to get authenticated. All of the documentation that we have got here. Again, I will show you like how to generate this kind of a documentation for the APIs that you are customly building for your organization or for the customers. And then again, this is the open API definition file. Okay, so this is the Swagger file, which is running behind this entire Swagger. So this is the entire JSON kind of an format. Again, you will be able to point it out that all of the APIs that we are going to call out are being listed here. So let's, for example, get invoice schema. Then what kind of a request it is, get, what are the expected parameters here, what is the expected response, and then everything like what is the input parameter, what is the output things, and all those things. So, but only thing is this one is in JSON format. So now that we want to probably go ahead and consume this API as a custom connector in our organization. So how to do that? So what we will do is, in this case, to start with, I will just save this entire file as a JSON file. So let me just click there, and let me just save this here as swagger.json. So I just have downloaded this Swagger definition as a JSON file onto my desktop. So the next thing is we need to go ahead and create the connector on top of it. So I will keep this window onto the extreme left because this is the API key that we'll have to use throughout our course here. All right. So in this case, what we can do is that we don't need to start from blank because we already have a definition with us, this Swagger file. So I will just click import and open API file, which is this Swagger file, which is the JSON file. And here we need to name our connector. So I will just call it as a Contoso invoicing. Let it be Contoso invoicing. And then I will import this file swagger.json from my desktop here, and I will click on continue. Right. So now, as soon as I do that, here you will be able to see that all of the things that it should have done is here. In the host, that what we need to do here is that we need to go ahead and specify the host as contosoinvoicing.azurewebsite.net, or at least anything, for example, uh, wherever your API is being hosted. So for that reason, let me just copy this Contoso invoicing. Let me go back here and point it out. Okay, and this API is running onto the HTTPS, so we will be selecting the scheme as HTTPS. We'll go for the security part. Here you can see that from the API definition file, from the Swagger file itself, it has taken that as an API key. Okay, because we have got other authentication options as well, but by looking at the Swagger JSON, the Swagger file, it has identified this one is using the authentication type as API key. All right, so that's it. So now that we will go into the definition, and here you will see that all of the APIs that we have seen here, for example, add invoices, list invoices, get invoice, all those APIs are available here, so that we'll be able to browse to them, as well as, for example, if you want to go ahead and modify any of those, even it is possible. So let's say, for example, if you want to modify any one of those, what we can do is, here we do have a few kind of a thing like definition, like how we want to call out this API in or in our organization. Let's say, for example, if you want to change this summary or description or even the operation ID, even you will be able to do that. And whenever we will create the definition, in that case, we do have few options as well. So let's say, for example, this is the query parameter that is being passed onto the this API, which is add invoice. So I can just click on this, click on edit, and here you can see that we have got again visibility kind of an options. So we do have visibility of none, advanced, internal, and important. So none, that means this option is the default one, and this action will display normally all of the query parameters that you have got. For example, if you go ahead with advanced, this action will be available, but it will not be prioritized. For example, if you go with the internal option for this, then this action will be hidden because it is internal, used for the internal purpose. Let's say, for example, whenever you deal with any of the object in .NET, there are few of the properties that you keep it as an internal for the internal processing, which you do not expose to the outside world. So if you keep this option as an internal, this one will be used just for the internal purpose. And then, for example, if you keep the visibility as important, that means this action will be prioritized and this one will be shown as the first. So let's say, for example, if you want to have prioritization for any of the query parameter, you can go ahead and do that. Again, for example, if you want to keep adding more and more parameters, you will be able to do that one as well. And again, here is the response, validation, all those things are here. Let's say, for example, if you want to go ahead and use this kind of a thing into code as well. So for example, if you are using .NET code, anything else, in that case, you will be also able to use this code from here directly by making a HTTP a request to that particular endpoint. But in our case, we'll keep it very simple. We will not go with those complications. All right. So now that, let us go into the test. Okay, so before we test, we need to save this connector, which we can do by clicking this create connector. So I will just click on create connector, and then we should be able to go ahead and test out this connector. Right. So let you take the time. All right. So once it will save the custom connector, what we'll be do is we should be able to call any of the API which is being exposed under this connector, and then we'll be able to use that. Okay, so next thing, we know that in order to go ahead use this connector, we need some kind of an authentication, and then that authentication is nothing but just the API key. So for that, what we need to do is we just need to create a new connection. So when you will click on new connection, it will open up in a new window. Again, by looking at this Swagger file or your custom connector definition, it can identify that it needs a API key. So what we'll do is I will just again take that API key that we have got from our documentation, from your customer or from the vendor, which is Contoso invoicing, and then we'll just simply go ahead and click create. Create the connection. All right. So once it is done, simply I will click on this refresh connection, and yeah, this is the connection that we have got. Okay, so this one is this one doesn't refresh itself, so you'll have to just click on refresh connection, and then you'll be able to see that connection being listed here. Again, for example, if you want to build another connection, you can click on that, and then at least based on the creation date time of that, it will show that. uh, Again, another thing is like when it is a connection, you should be able to go back to the connections tab here, and then if you want, you can rename that as well. All right, so now that we have the connection, let's say we want to test this out before we go ahead and start consuming this in Power Apps and Power Automate, because now that you are acting some kind of an admin here, who is going to expose this entire custom connector to your organization. So always it is good that before you roll it out to your users who can consume the Power Apps or Power Automate, go ahead and test it out. So this is the place where we'll be able to test out. So again, we are going to hit the same endpoint list invoices that we had hit from here. So what we'll do simply from here is that I will go to list invoices, all of the operations here. I will not put anything for these optional parameters. I will just click on test operation. If everything goes well, we have got status as 200, which is success. These were the headers that were being passed to that API, and then this is the response that we have received here for the list invoices. So these are all of the invoices that we can see here. All right, but good thing is that we have our custom connector working, and now that we are ready to use this custom connector in our Power Automate or Power Apps as well as in the Logic apps. Okay, so let us give it some time to save the connectors along with the connection that we have got. And now that what we can do is let us try to create some simple flow and then try to see how it works for that custom connector. So for that, I will just go into this create. I will click the instant cloud flow because I just want to trigger that manually. And I will just probably, I will skip this and I will name that flow here. Okay, let it load. Okay, so in the untitled, instead of untitled, I will just call it as a Contoso invoicing. And this is a place from where we should be able to go ahead and start creating our flow. I will just keep it manually triggering flow. We don't want to pass on any input because through this flow, what we want to achieve is all of the invoices that we have got in our system from Contoso, we just want to email them to certain set of people. Okay, so we will try to build that use case. So this one is a manually triggering flow. Now, obviously, when you will do it for your own organization, that one will be a recurring kind of a flow which can send these invoices maybe on a Friday or any kind of a scheduled basis. But just to keep it simple, I'm just making it as a manually trigger flow. I will click on new action, and once you will go into this custom, you should be able to see your flow, sorry, your connector that you have built just now. So this is the custom connector that we had built, which is available here under the custom tab. And then from here, we'll be able to use all of the actions which are available under this connector. So let's say we have all those, but we'll go ahead with list invoices. And Just to note here, everything being denoted here as a premium. Okay, so all of the connectors that you will build, they will be the premium connectors. All right. So this is the list invoices we have got. For example, if you want to pass on any of the from date, to date, status, amount, all those things, you will be able to do that. But we will still keep it simple. What we want now is that after running this flow, we will get the list of invoices. Simply, we want to send this as an email notification to someone, someone in your organization. So for that, what we'll do before we compose that email box, we just simply go ahead and create some kind of an HTML table formatting so that this one will look better before we go ahead and send that. So for that, I will just go ahead and try to find out something with HTML table. Okay, so we have one option here to create a HTML table, so which can accept some kind of a JSON which is coming out of the list invoices. So here, all of the invoices, I know that those are available under invoices, so I can simply go ahead and select that invoices, and then in the new step I can simply go ahead and then send email. So maybe instead of sending it to someone else, I will just try to send it to myself. So I will just go ahead and select this, send me an email notification. Okay, and then in the subject, I will just type it as Contoso invoicing, and in the body we can go ahead and take the output from the HTML formatting, and that's it. I will go ahead, save this, and we will run this. Okay, so I'm just praying demo god that this should work well, and then we should be able to see the result coming out of this over the email. All right, so we'll go ahead, run this manually. It is asking me to get myself authenticated against these two connectors, which we will do. We'll click continue, and then we will just run this flow. Right. Okay, done. Okay, so let the flow run. Okay, and this is very quick. You can see that we got at least few of the invoices in the output. We can see those invoices. Even I can go into the HTML table, and this is the formatted table that we can see. And obviously, this must have sent me as an email, which you can see as the HTML table formatting that you have got. But just to save the time, probably I will not go into that email, but you will have to trust me that it works. All right. So this is very much simple. Like, let's say, for example, if someone has built the connector for you or the APIs for you, how you will be able to wrap that API as an connector and then expose that custom connector which can be consumed in Power Apps, Power Automate, or even Logic apps. All right. So pretty much simple. Now that let us come to the part of the pro code developers. Again, I will not go into the more coding of Azure side or maybe onto the .NET side. But again, let's say, for example, you have some kind of an functionalities in your organization and you want to consume that in your Power Platform, maybe in Power Apps or Power Automate, but you don't know like how to start with that, right? So in that case, what we can do is that we can create those Azure APIs, and then we'll be able to use them. All right, so these custom APIs are just the normal REST-based APIs that can expose some kind of a functionality. So whether you are trying to build some complex logic or connecting to your existing system, you can simply create a REST API in your favorite platform using any language, describe it using Swagger, and then you will be able to use that into a Power Apps. So in this demonstration, we are going to build the REST API using ASP.NET Web API in C Sharp, and that includes some kind of an endpoint. Probably we can call it as a product API, which will return the list of products. And to keep it simple, we will keep those records in kind of a memory. But again, for that, let me go into my developer environment. So this one is the Visual Studio 2019, but even you should be able to do all those magic with Visual Studio 2022, which is the recent edition as well. So once you open up that, you just need to go into the file, new project, and then simply just search out for API. Okay, so from here you'll be able to see all of the API based templates from where you'll be able to go ahead create the project. So you can select either the ASP.NET web based API or just the .NET Core web API. Once you create any of the project like that, this is the simple project structure that you will get. So this one is nothing but the API which will help you to write a code through which you will be able to connect to any of the underlying system get that data and maybe expose that data to the outside world. Okay, so these are all of the controllers that we have got which will help us to do that. Whenever you will create a basic project, it will have this weather forecast kind of an controller which will just simply give you some kind of a random weather. But now that, let's say for example, if you want to go ahead create your own controller, in that case you can just right click onto the project, go for add new item, and then you will be able to see a controller option here. So either you can go ahead with MVC controller. MVC controller probably is not needed here because we don't have any view part here, because we just want to go ahead and create the normal APIs which can be easily consumed by your end users. So probably we can go ahead with this API controller which is empty, and then once you do that, this is how that controller will look like. So let's say now that I have this product controller, so which is kind of an, I will say, very highly complicatedly coded. Like this one has got product which has got few attributes like ID, name, details, and price. And this is the most complicated code that you must have seen until now, that we are just creating three products like pencil, pen, sharpener, and then we are giving this from our code to the outside world as an API which is running under slash API slash products. Okay, so this is kind of an web-based terminology. Like whenever you have API, so all of the code which is available here that will run will be under the endpoint of API slash the first name just before the controller. So all of the functionality now will be available under the host slash API slash products. Okay, so this is the only thing. Once you have that, at least your code is ready, and then you should be able to go ahead and use that API slash product. So let's say we just go ahead, start out this, and once we go there, by default it will point to that weather forecast that we have got there. But if you just go to slash API slash products, even you should be able to see all of the products that we have defined in our code, right? So these are all of the products that we have defined in our code. So this is the simple web-based API that we can create. So now that, let's say we want to go ahead and expose this API to the outside world, and then which can be consumed in Power Automate, Power Apps, or in Logic Apps. So how we can go about it? So the simple thing is that we should try to create something kind of an swagger, because here you can see that this is a very basic coding that I have done. I haven't written any kind of an documentation, no comments, nothing. So me as a developer, I know that what I have written. But for example, if I come back to this after a months of time, or maybe if I hand over this code to other developer, that they might not have more idea about what I have written. But still that I want to go ahead, create some kind of an quick documentation around that, and then I should be able to package that as an API, so that the low code and no code kind of an developers go ahead and they will be able to consume it. So quickly, how we'll be able to do that, right? So for that we have something kind of an called as an packages, which is for the Swagger. So simply we need to go ahead and add the Swagger support. So to add the Swagger support, what we need is the open API kind of a specification, which are nothing but set of rules that describes your REST API. Then we need Swagger, which is a set of open source tools built around open API specifications that we have got. And then lastly, we need Swashbuckle, which is nothing but a NuGet or Nugget, whatever you call it, that NuGet package. So Swagger tools, so it is nothing but the Swagger tool for documenting your .NET APIs. So to do that, what we can do simply is that right click on your project, and then go to the manage NuGet packages. And from here, you should be able to search for this swashbuckle.asp.NET Core. This one is the core package created for the ASP.NET Core best kind of a project, a Swashbuckle. Once you just add this Swashbuckle, what magic it can do is simply, now that, let's say I will run this again, some kind of an smaller adjustment needs to be done. That you just need to make sure that in the configure there is app.use swagger, or at least use the endpoint that you want to go ahead and point to that Swagger API. If you just do that basic thing, again, for example, if you are using Visual Studio 2022, these things happen to you out of the box. So I will not go into those complications. But now that what will happen is that, let's say I just run this, And now that we have our API available at this endpoint, but we don't have the Swagger. But as soon as I hit this magic endpoints called as /Swagger, you can see that this one has created all those API documentation as well as all of the APIs that we have got here. So I will focus on these products. So maybe by looking at that code, you can see that I don't have any documentation, nothing there. But still, now that this Swagger has been generated, you can see that this Swagger goes through that code and at least explains like what I'm trying to do that code. So here, no authenticate button. That means we don't have any authentication here. I can simply go and try it out, and then we will be able to see like what is there. Okay, so I can simply click execute, and then all of the products that we have got, we are seeing that those are being written as a JSON format. So nothing especially that I did. So, but this Swagger has generated that kind of a documentation through which I should be able to, or the end user should be able to know that what kind of an expected parameters, what kind of an expected response, and then what that response will look like. Okay, so even if you will use this Swagger, you don't need to create any highly complicated documentation. You can just write good code and then it will take care of everything. All right, so now that we have this everything, how we'll be able to use this as an Azure API, and then use that Azure API as a connector in Power Platform. So for that, what I have done is I have deployed this same code onto ASP.NET web app. So for that purpose, what I will do is I will simply go to the Azure portal. And in this Azure portal, I just have created one resource group inside which I have app service created. So this is my app service. Okay, yeah, this is my app service. And in this app service, I have hosted the entire code which I just have run locally onto this app service. So what I will do is let me just browse to that URL and I can show you that it is the same thing which was running onto the local. So now that as I browse to this, you can see that it is the same thing. Okay, we don't have any UI for the API. That's the reason we don't see anything here. As soon as I hit this /Swagger, you can see that we have the same APIs or endpoints available here, which we'll be able to go ahead and consume. So basically, now that we have our code running onto the Azure, which is now acting as an API endpoint. Next thing what we are going to do is we are going to use something called as an APIM or Azure API management, which is a fully managed service which enables all the organizations to publish, secure, transform, maintain, as well as monitor the APIs, right? So what is mean by that is once you will go ahead and create a new resource in Azure, just search out for API management service, and this is how that resource will look like. So let me just close out the other things, and this is the API management service. So you can just look out for that resource, and then you should be able to create that. So this is the API M, which will help you to manage all of your APIs in the organization. So once you are here, what you can do is you can just click on APIs, and here again you get the option like how you want to define those APIs, whether from any of the open API or from any of the logic app or anything else. Oh, I think I also closed out this window where we have the API running. So let me just quickly go back to the app service and take that API URL, which we should be able to consume. All right, so we'll just take that /Swagger. So this is the endpoint that we want to go ahead and use. Okay. So this is the Swagger API that we want to consume here. So for that, what I will do is I will just click on this open API, and here we should be able to at least go ahead and specify the specification. All right. So now that I just have clicked that, and then oh, all right. So let me just do it one more time. Okay, looks like it is not working. All right. Oh, right. Because the only thing is like I wasn't giving the entire URL of the Swagger JSON file. My mistake. So I should give the entire Swagger JSON URL here. Okay. All right. So I will go ahead, specify that URL, and then you can see that as soon as I tab over from that, it has automatically populated the display name and name for this by looking at the definition of my Swagger. Okay. And then if you want, you can specify some kind of an API URL. So all of the APIs which are running under this will start running under that API URLs suffix, but I will not do it. Let's go ahead and just click on create. So as soon as we click on create, it will take us to another window wherein we should be able to go ahead and define the settings for that. So here you can see that we do have two APIs, Echo API, which is the weather API that we had got. Sorry, just the Echo API, and then we have got product API under which we have got products and weathers. So for this, what I can do now is that I can probably go into this API products, and then from here I can go to the settings, because now that we want to just consume this API from the outside world as an API M. Okay, so only one thing that we need to make sure here is that we have the correct web service URL pointing here, which is our Azure website.net. Once you are happy with that, you can just click on save, and that's it. Now that, uh, okay, let it save. Right. Okay, so now that we need to go ahead and test that. But again, one thing I will quickly do is that I will not have the subscription required. Otherwise, I will have to go ahead and specify the subscription key as well. So just to keep it simple, I will not go into the authentication part of this. I will keep it uh, no authentication mode. Okay, by turning off this subscription required, and I have saved it. So now that we can go into this test, I can just click on this operation, which is API/products, and then simply so this is the URL where it is pointing to. I can just click on send, and if everything goes well, we should be able to see the same response here, right? Okay, so now that we know that we are pretty much happy with this functionality, we want to go ahead and use this into the Power Apps. So for that purpose, what we can do is just click on these three dots next to the API which is defined by you, and just click on create Power Connector, and that's it. Once you do that, it will take you directly to the portal kind of a thing, and you will be able to go ahead and then define that API. So from here we need to select which API we want to expose into the Power Platform. So we will select this product API, that's it. And then what is the display name for this, and which Power Platform environment where you want to go ahead and use that. So I will select the default environment. I will define this as the display name, and I will just go ahead and click on create. So what this will do is this will go ahead and create a custom connector for me into the Power Platform environment, and then we should be also able to go ahead and use that. So let us wait until this just goes ahead and create that custom connector. Probably I will skip the demo to consume it just by looking at the time. But again, this one is just the connector which is available there, which we should be able to go ahead and use. So for that, let me again go back to the custom connectors, and here you can see that this product API is here. Another thing, once you get that API here, it is your duty to go ahead and then test out that connector, right? So do go ahead, test out that connector, and then you should be able to use it the same way that you use the other connectors in Power Apps as well as the Power Automate. Okay, so with that, now what we will do is we'll simply show you the demo of the connector that we had built customly for the sessionize, right?
So Synchronize is a smarter way to manage the call for paper, speakers, and agenda for your conference. So this connectors helps to connect with the sessionize to get the conference related information about the speaker, their sessions, and conference agenda. Also, this connector can be used with Power Apps, Power Automate, and the Logic apps. So this connector does not need any authentication. So once the setup is done, this connector supports the actions such as get the list of sessions for your conference and get the list of speaker for your conference. The reason why we have developed this connector is for our own use case. So as a part of community collaboration, we run a local user group called Pune Tech Community. And as a part of our community initiative, we organize various events across the year. We open a call for speaker, invite the speaker to talk on various diverse topics, build the agenda, and then publish the free event for everyone to join. So couple of things that we have commonly to perform as a part of our event organizing, such as share the conference agenda to the attendees by email app for conference speakers, which will help the attendees to get the information on speaker and the topics they are presenting at the event. So let us explore these cases in a demo.
All right, so we are just quickly custom connector. Right, so this is a custom connector which is available at this URL. Even you will be able to consume that, which is customly built by me and Smita. So do go ahead and try out this custom connector in your environment as well. All right, so this one is about the sessionize. So let's say, for example, now that at Pune Tech Community we are also organizing another event tomorrow for the Power Platform Bootcamp. So this is the event that we have got published onto the sessionize. One thing that we need to do here is that we just need to go into the go into the schedule. Oh, sorry, go into the edit event, and then only thing that we just need to make sure here is that we are kind of an specifying this particular event. Oh, sorry, we just need to go to the API/embed, and then this is the endpoint through which all of the session as information can be used by the outside world. Only thing here, we need to make sure that we are following the JSON format, and that's it. You should be able to go ahead and use this custom connector in your Power Apps, or maybe even in Power Automate. So for that, quickly, what I will do is I will go back to the Power Apps portal.
Nanddeep, the
Yeah,
screen,
sure.
the blank screen. We can't see the data. The screen, sorry, the
Black
slide deck.
screen.
We can't see it.
Sure. All right.
Something happened.
So okay. Let me. Sorry for that. Let me quickly go ahead and start the sharing one more time. All right. Do you see it now?
Now we can see it. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. Sorry for that. Okay. So what I will do is I'll quickly try to create a Power App with that connector. So we'll click on create. We'll go ahead with the blank canvas app, and then I will just call it as a session nice here, and then I will click on create. Okay, so what we want to show here is like all of the speakers who are presenting their sessions tomorrow, as well as what kind of a sessions they are going to present. So I just have selected the gallery view here while it got created. So simply what we can do is I can go into the connectors, or maybe from here I can select for the session nice, and this is the independent publisher connector that you can see available for everyone. I will just go ahead and select that, and that's it. So under the data source, we have this uh, session is selected. Now that what we need to do from here is that for each of the session is connector that we have got, we just need to go ahead and this is the session as independent publisher. And for the items, I will just go ahead and then do a dot here, and then I will just go ahead and do the get speakers. And then to this, we need to just specify the ID of the sessionizer. So which that ID we should be able to get from here. So this is the ID which I was mentioning about, which has to be exposed as a JSON format, right? So I will go ahead and add that ID here, and that's it. So it should be able to go ahead and get all of the speakers for this. So at least you can see that it has populated everything. So what I will do here is that for the image that we have got, I will just call it as this item dot. We have got picture URL somewhere. Yeah, profile picture. Okay, and then this should bring up the profile picture. So you can see all of the speakers who are speaking tomorrow. This is the another screen wherein we need to show the name of the speaker. So I can just do this item dot maybe full name, and then below that we have another thing. I can click on edit this item dot maybe anything like bio could be, right? And that's it. Now that you can see that our data is coming from the session eyes, and then we should be able to build out this kind of an apps or even flows which will be able to go ahead and pull out that data. Okay, so I will probably skip the other part, but that part was just about showing the sessions onto the right hand side. So as you will click the speaker, all of the corresponding sessions for that speaker will be shown here, but maybe I will keep it optional. I do have one video on that, so watch out my YouTube channel for how we can go about that. But this is the simple app that you should be able to go ahead and quickly do that with the custom connector. All right, so that was about the demo, how to go ahead and use that session as custom connector. So with that, sorry for overrunning, but please fill out this survey and win this swags, or even you can visit this bit.ly/gppb survey. Okay, so the conclusion for this session is that connector is nothing but the proxy or a wrapper around the API, which allows Power Automate, Power Apps, Logic Apps to communicate with the underlying service that you have got. So simply certify and share this connector as an open source for the benefit of everyone. Whenever you are developing any custom APIs, don't forget to add this Swagger support so that you don't need to do the complex kind of an documentation, and it will be easy for the consumers to go ahead and consume your APIs. And for example, if you are looking out for any kind of an opportunity to co-develop, connect with us, and we'll be able to. We will be more than happy to develop any of the custom connector with you. All right. With that, thank you very much for having us, and sorry for overrunning.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
thank you
much.
so much.
Really amazing session here. You covered both the things. You using the connector, using a Power Platform, and also using the Azure way is a very useful. There are a couple of questions which came that I mostly be able to answer because we have to give space to the another speaker. But thanks Nanddeep and Smita. Really amazing session, and we really appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much. I
Thank you
will
so
answer
much.
the questions in the chat window. Plus, please continue with the next session. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Nanddeep and
Yeah,
Smita.
thank you.
Yep.
Yes. Now we have another amazing speaker. I'm one of the very close friend of mine as well. I get a lot of inputs from him. So his name is Clavin. Clavin, are you with us?
Yes, I am. I hope
Yeah,
that you can hear me.
very well. Yeah, thank you. How are things with you?
Good. Busy, but yeah, it's good
Yeah,
to
yeah,
be
yeah.
back in speaking.
Yeah. Actually, I attended the morning session in Microsoft, and a lot of people there, and a lot of ex MVPs I saw. So really amazing stuff they provided. And now we are attending a virtual session. I hope you are doing one more session in Pune session, right? Right?
Yes, it's
Tomorrow.
going to be tomorrow, so I'm going to
Tomorrow,
meet
yeah, it's
Nanddeep.
going to be hectic session for you, right? Hectic schedule.
Yes, it's a bit hectic, but that's fine because we are MVPs because we like to help the community, and that's what
Yeah,
we
yeah.
do, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks. And the
and
stage is all yours. Again, before I proceed, the PCF components are pro code, right? Or we can use for low code also. Any
This
inputs?
is going to be pro code developers I'm going to focus on, but low code developers don't be heartbroken because we are going to go ahead and configure it with basic JavaScript, but and HTML and CSS. This is going to be a building block. So if you are very new to PCF or the Power Apps component framework, just stay with me and I can guarantee you that at the end of the session, you will be quite confident with the framework itself.
Awesome. I love the word heartbroken. I think low code people will enjoy your session for sure. Thank you. And just your stage is all yours, Clavin.
Thank you. So, hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's session. In today's session, we'll be getting started with Power Apps Component Framework. So, my name is Clavin Fernandes. I'm a Microsoft Business Applications MVP. I'm also managing developer relations and support services for PSPDF Kit. I'm a Power Automate super user. I'm also a speaker, a blogger, and a YouTube content creator. That being said, what is the agenda for today? First and foremost, I will go ahead and explain to you what is PCF and what is code component. Okay, PCF is a framework and it creates code components. What are the advantages of code components? If you have been a Dynamics developer, you might have created HTML resources, right? Why should you not create HTML resources and why should you create PCF components is something that I'm going to touch upon. We'll talk about the tooling that is required for the component development. And finally, we will go ahead and develop the actual component. Okay. So what is a PCF code component? A PCF component or a code component or PCF or Power Apps component framework empowers professional developers and app makers to create code components for model driven and canvas apps. Now, when I say that, understand this, it empowers professional developers, but it also empowers citizen and low code developers. Because once you go ahead and create the component can be reused by citizen developers in their apps, right? and that will empower the citizen developers as well. So as a pro developer, you write the code, create the code component, but as a citizen developer, you consume that component in your apps. That being said, a code component can be used to enhance the user experience, right? I can hear someone, but that's fine. The code components can be used to enhance the user experience for working with data in the form. So if you're doing model-driven apps or dynamics, forms is a big part of it. Similarly, views and dashboard. If you're doing canvas apps, it's going to be screens, right? Now, most importantly, what is the advantages of code component over HTML resources? Right? HTML resources are very similarly looking to the code component. They look similar because you don't know what happens under the hood. But you can spot the difference in one go. How can you spot the difference? HTML components, when you go ahead and see it in a model-driven app, it will go ahead and render last. Okay, that will be the final part that renders on your screen. However, code components render together with the entire form. So that gives a better user experience. In addition, you don't have the context in the HTML web resource. Now, the pro developers in the meeting will tell Clavin you're wrong. No, I'm not wrong. I know that there are hacky ways to get the context, but why use hacky ways when you have the PCF component framework, right? So you get the context. The context will provide you many more things. We'll talk about it when I actually develop the code component. And finally, it has responsive design. So that being said, let's talk about the advantages of the code component. First and foremost, seamless server access via web APIs. Web APIs are used in Dynamics or model-driven apps, and that can be used to go ahead and fetch data from the forms. It has seamless access via web API. Support for modern web practices. I told you that you can write it with basic JavaScript, HTML. I think pro developers will be heartbroken by listening to this, right? Don't worry, pro developers. You can also do React. Okay, React support has also come in. So React is also there. It is optimized for performance, right? You don't need to do a lot of customization in your code. It doesn't mean that you write code which is bad, write code which is good, and it will automatically optimize it. Reusability, as I told you, right? The citizen developers can reuse it again and again in their apps to create beautiful apps out of it. Finally, all the files, CSS, JavaScript, HTML, everything can be bundled into one solution package. That is what is the benefit of the code components. So easy manageability as well. That being said, what are the prerequisites for developing code component? You need Visual Studio Code. I assume everyone has that. Okay, everyone has that. Even if you are a low-code developer, you will have Visual Studio Code installed. If you don't have it, please go ahead and install it. LTS version of Node.js, Power Platform CLI, and .NET Build Tools. Those are the prerequisites. I already have the prerequisites installed on my computer because I did not want to waste a lot of time, and we need to concentrate on the actual demo. So that being said, what is the demo about? We'll go ahead and understand the project structure. What, as I promised you, right? We'll understand the framework. Once you understand the framework, it will be much, much easier for you to go ahead and write your code component. So we'll understand the framework. We'll understand the file, the manifest file. It's the metadata about your component. We'll talk about it. I'll show you how it actually works out. And then we will implement the PCF code. We'll do it using basic JavaScript and HTML, but feel free to do it with React as well. Then we'll talk about packaging and deploying the code component. We'll deploy the code component in both Canvas and model-driven app. Okay, so that's going to be the demo. I'm going to go ahead and exit, and I'm going to show you what am I planning to actually do. Right, so this is, come on, I need to maximize, and my browser is not responding. Is it because, okay, let me try to once stop sharing. And let me try to reshare. It happens to me always. That's why I stop and reshare. Aro, Dhruvin, you can see my screen again, right? Okay, I take it as a yes.
Yes, we are able to see.
Yes,
Perfect.
we can.
Perfect. Perfect. So what I have created this week on the 21st, it was my baby's and my wife's birthday. They both share the same birthday. Okay. And she is also a Power Platform enthusiast. So what I did, I went and created a component because I wanted to wish her happy birthday. And I did not want to wish her just like that. I wanted her name and my baby's name to glow, right? Literally glow. So I created a component, a custom code component that glows. And when I say that, we can configure it. Now, we were talking about properties. Now, a custom code component is actually a control. A control has got properties. And if you look at the right, you'll see the properties. If I make changes to the properties, for example, if I change the font size, it should increase the font size, right? If I change the font color to red, it should increase the font color. Just think of it. This is a very basic code component, but we can go ahead and create complex code components as well. But let's focus on the basics and how we can go ahead and create this particular code component. Okay. So what is our use case? To create a component that glows. That being said, let's start building our code component. So what I can do, I can right click first and I'll create a folder, right? The folder goes onto my first screen. I need to drag it in. So and I'll give it a name. Give it a name. Let's rename it. I'll just say Glow PCF. Right? Glow PCF is there and it's here. So what I can do, I can right click, show more options, and I can say open in Visual Studio Code. And my code is here. Visual Studio Code is here. Perfect. So once I have the Visual Studio Code open, I need to provision the project, right? I need to go ahead and get the framework first down because that's what I'm going to explain you. So we'll go to the terminal. We'll open a new terminal. Perfect, right? Then what if you guys have used pack commands? So pack commands are Power Apps component. I can say it's CLI, Power Platform CLI commands. Those commands are used to go ahead and configure the PCF as well. I just typed in pack because I have Power Platform CLI installed. And here you see the first in the list, you also see PCF, right? You see the PCF. So pack commands are used to configure the PCF. That being said, I can go ahead and type the whole command, but I would like to copy it for now to just save up some time. So I'm going to copy this command. Let's give it a name. Today is the 24th, so I will give it a unique name, 24. And what is the name of my component? The name of my component will also be 24. There are two types of templates. Okay, let's talk about this command itself. Pack, you know what pack is. PCF is the component that we are trying to create. We are initializing it. We are giving it a namespace and we are giving it a name. And then comes the template. The template is the most confusing part. It's a field type template and you can have a data or a grid template. In my experience, I have always used the field template. Okay, the data or the grid is basically used to be in the model driven apps. If you have a grid control, that's where you go ahead and associate this particular control. For this, I think the field type template would be perfect, right? So if you see, I hit enter and with the blink of, you see the provision, it's provision. Perfect, right? Now, what does it tell me? It tells me, okay, Clavin, it's cool. Now go ahead and run npm install. That's why I told you, you need Node, right? So I'll hit npm install. Now it will go to the web and it will get all the Node packages down here. Okay, so we need to be patient and then it will go ahead and get our project. So that being said, let's wait and let's look at it getting provision. So while it's getting provision, I don't want to wait. Let's make good use of our time, right? So first and foremost, let's look at the structure of the project. First, you have a folder. The folder is very important because this is where the real magic happens. That is your actual component, right? In the component folder, folder, you will have files like the manifest file. It's the metadata about your control, right? And then you have the index file. The index file is the file where you actually write the code. Okay, the index file is the actual file where you write the code. Now, that being said, in the manifest file, let's start with the manifest file. In the manifest file, you have got first the metadata of the PCF control, the namespace that we provided, the constructor will be also there in the index.ts. Then you have the version. Now, this has come up to me, and I have actually, when I was initially developing the PCF, I always used to think, why is my PCF not getting updated once it's deployed? I then realized that I have to change the version number each time. Or else in my CDS, way back that time it was CDS, now it's Dataverse. In the Dataverse, it will always reference the old solution. So if you are redeploying the solution, my friends, please make sure that you go ahead and increase the version number. Okay, similarly, you have the display name key, and then you have the description key, and the control is standard, right? That is what the third line tells you. Then you have some commented code. It is used for accessing external services. In our case, we are not going to do that. But if you see out here, it's using external domains such as www.microsoft.com. If you're going to do that, yes, you can uncomment this code. Similarly, you can go ahead and see line number 20. Okay, sorry, 21. This is very important. Why is it important? Because if I go back to my PCF control, let me go back out here. This is what the property pane looks like, right? This is the control that I want to render, or these are the properties. These properties or so-called parameters are defined in the manifest file. It's defined here. The one property that comes out of the box is the sample property. Okay. Then a sample property should also have type to it, right? It's a type of single line of text. Similarly, you can have number or a group, right? The display name and the description is self-explanatory. So we'll skip that part, right? But the most important is the usage. So usage means there are two types that you can think about. Usage can be bound or input. Bound means it has to bind to a particular field in CDS, okay, or in a particular field on the form. And input means it can either be bound or you can provide custom input. Now, don't get confused by it as of now. At the end of the demo, we will go ahead and see what does bound and input means. But just remember the usage can be bound or input. And if it's required, true or false, right? That is very, very important. That being said, if you have a group control, you define like this. You'll not most often not define a group control. Okay, not do it very often. But if you want to define it, it's how it is done. That being said, then you have the resource files. The resource files make up the files which are there in the project. The first file is the index file, right? The index file. And what is the order? The order is one. That means it will be rendered first. If you want to have it in sequence, change 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you have the CSS file. If you want to make your component look beautiful, you need CSS. So you can uncomment this and add CSS. We are going to do that in the later part of the demo. Then you have the regex or the resource files, right? These files are used for multilingual support. If you have multilingual support, you can go ahead and do that. For this demo, we'll keep it simple. Then you have the feature usage. Now, this, my friends, is mostly for the model-driven apps, not for Canvas apps. One of the most, or I can say two of the most often used resources would be the utility and the web API. These two resources are used to get data from your CDS, right? That is why we go ahead and use it very often. The other resources may be a file picker, or maybe get the current position, the geolocation of where the form is being opened or where the app is being opened from, barcode values, capturing image, maybe a camera control image, and then audio, right? But two most used features are the utility and the web API. So this makes up your manifest file, right? The next comes the index file. So before I get into the index file, I told you something, right? I told you, let's go ahead and first look at the sample property. So how do I go ahead and run, or how do I go ahead and see what is happening in my project? First, of course, I need to build my project. And Power Apps component framework provides a test harness, okay? Provides a harness which you can go ahead and use during development. And how do I go ahead and start it? By putting the command npm start watch. Now what it will do, it will launch the default browser on your computer and it will render my control. Okay, it launched it and it rendered my control. It's the vanilla control. If you see, it has data inputs, that is sample property, and then it has values associated with it. Perfect, right? So this is how a control looks like, a clean slate. Now we are going to go ahead and start building on it. And where do you build your control? You build your control in the index.ts file. So the index.ts file is a class type file. It has a constructor and then it has methods. The methods are something very, very important. The first method that we need to focus on is the init method. Init stands for initialization. As soon as the component initializes, this method will be fired. Okay. The compulsory attribute out here is, or the parameter out here is the context, right? The context. The context will return you values such as parameters from the manifest file and much more, right? It actually returns you the entire property bag as an object. So context is mandatory. You cannot get rid of it. However, the notify output change is actually a callback method. If something changes in your control, then go ahead and it goes ahead and triggers, right? That's the notify output change. State is a session for a user. I have not used states very often, but you might use it. Then the most important part, the container. That's the HTML element that I was talking about. So this is the HTML element that you can go ahead and build on. Next comes the update view. The update view is rendered each time a property in the property bag updates. Okay, I'll again repeat. When something changes in the property bag, that is where it is being fired. So if I go ahead and change out here, let's say, and if I click something updated, that is where this particular method will kick in. That is the update view, right? Get outputs. If you are processing the data and if you are throwing output outside, if you're passing the output outside, that is where the get output will be fired. And then the final method will be the destroy method, which is actually the cleanup method, right? Now, that being said, let's go ahead and start building our code. So give me a minute. Perfect. So first and foremost, let me start with the index.ts itself, right? Let's start with the index.ts. So first and foremost, under the class, I'm going to create a public. Let's create a variable of type HTML element. Yeah, we'll just create a type of HTML element. So I'm creating a variable, right? The first thing first, I'll create a variable. Once I create a variable, you see down here, it is automatically detecting the errors and it is telling me if I'm going wrong. If you see the terminal, I'm still rendering. The browser is still reloading in the background, right? So understand this. This is really cool. That's what I can say. Now that I have initialized this, what I need to do next, let's look at a control. And let's go ahead and build the control itself. I want to add a placeholder where I want to add text. Okay, I want to add a placeholder that adds text. The placeholder is there, right? But I need to initialize it. And where should I initialize it? I should initialize it in the init method. So I'll say this dot glowing text is equals to, and I'll take the document element and I'll say create an element because I need to go ahead and put it in, right? I need to append it. And I want to give it a type div. So what I'm doing, I'm just creating an element of type div. Now that I have created the element, I want to go ahead and set the inner text of the element. Understand this. This is basic JavaScript. So how will I do that? This dot glowing text dot inner HTML. And then I can just say something like Clavin Fernandes. Yes, guys, I'm obsessed with my name. So let's keep it this way, right? At this point, if I go back to my control, And if I try to refresh it, nothing is coming up. Why nothing is coming up? The point is I have created it, but I have not appended it to the main container. And how will I do that? How will I append it? I will append it by putting in container dot append child, and I'll say what should I append? This dot glowing text, because that's the only thing there on my screen. So this is how I have gone ahead and appended it. Now, if you see, my friends, it has been rendered. Basic JavaScript, basic HTML, right? Now it has been appended. That is perfect. That's pretty good news. But now this says sample property. It says sample property. I want it to be glowing text, right? Or glow text or something like that. I need to go ahead and configure this. I need to configure the property bag. If you have been paying attention, it can be configured in where? In the manifest.input XML file. So what I'll do is that I'll change the name of the sample property to glow text. I'll change the display name, and I'll change the description key, right? I leave it single line of text, leave it bound, and leave it required. That's perfect. Now, if I go back and look at my control, wow, it updated in real time. It's glow text now. But now, if I type in my baby's name, Dhavin, it's not getting updated. Wow, how should I update it? That's the big question. Again, where do I do it? This time I do it in index.tx, right? So in the index.ts, I need to update it. So to update it, let's go ahead and first get the properties from the property bag. The first thing is to get the properties from the property bag to this particular index.ts method. How can I do that? This can be done using the context, right? So I can go ahead perhaps and use the context to query the property bag. It tells you here itself, the entire property bag is available through the context object. And we are going to make use of this context object. So let's make use of the context object. Let me actually add a condition, because if it's blank, then it becomes a little bit tricky. So context dot parameter dot, okay, glow text, it's IntelliSense is your friend. So always use IntelliSense. And I want the raw inputs, right? If it is there, right, then go ahead and set this property inside. So I want to set this property. So I'll cut and I'll paste. And I don't want to hard code it. I want to set it dynamically, right? So I'll copy it and I'll paste this. Now, if I go back to my test harness, it loads, right? It loads. But however, if I go ahead and type in Fernandes, it does not refresh. But however, if I refresh the whole container, because it reinitializes, the property is being visible. We don't want that. We want to update it on a fly. So what I can do, I can just take this method, I'll copy it and I'll paste it. I'll paste few lines of code out in the update method. Once I go ahead and put it in the update method, it should do the trick, right? So I'm searching for my browser. So here it is. So let's go ahead and type now Dhavin, right? But my wife will kill me because I misspelled my baby's name. So it's Dhavin, Dhavin, right? So Dhavin, cool. Now we have also updated the property. Now the property is being updated when the property in the property bag gets updated. For example, I'll reword it. Sorry, I said property a lot of time. Now the screen gets updated when the property in the property bag gets updated. Okay, this is the right thing that I can talk about. So now this is cool, right? This is super cool. What next? Let's go back to our control and let's actually look at a control one more time. Now what I want to do, I want to go ahead and configure other properties in the property bag, such as text, text weight, and color. And how can I do that? I can go to the input, I can go to the manifest file, and I can do that, right? So let me actually copy code, because if I type it, it will take forever and you guys will get bored with it. So I'm going to copy some code. I'm going back to the manifest file, and let me paste it here. Right. So let's see, the property have been pasted and this looks good. If I go back to my browser, I have got all the properties in here, which is text weight, which is color, etc., etc. So perfect. So we are right on track. Similarly, I can go to index.tx and I can go ahead and just copy paste this code again and again and change the property name. For example, instead of glow text, I can say, what is the next property name? Text color, right? And text color out here, and I want to pass in raw text color, right? So I can change the properties here as well. I'm going to again copy paste some code because I want to save on time. Okay. So let's copy paste some code out here. So I'll copy pasted text size, I'll copy pasted text weight, etc. Similarly, I can take this whole bunch and I can copy it in the update view because I want these properties to be updated whenever something changes. Now it's the moment of truth because trust me, for me, copy paste is my enemy. Okay. It's not my friend sometimes. So let me go ahead and change the text weight. Let's change it to 70. Let's see if the weight actually goes ahead and increases. Okay, it's text weight or it's text size. Okay, it's text size, Clavin. It's not text weight. So text size, if I put it to 70, whoa, it's a bigger text. So the property bag and the code changes that we made are looking good. Okay, are looking very, very good, by the way. So this is how a control will look like. But a control looks boring, right? There's nothing glowing. We want it to glow, right? If I go ahead and change the weight of the text, it will become bold, but it's not glowing. How can I go ahead and make it glowing? Huh. So as I told you, for making the text glowing, who is your friend? How do you make it glow? How do you make your HTML look beautiful? Using CSS. And that's a resource, right? So this is the resource that we need. So I'll just cut, I can just actually copy this resource and I'll just paste it in here, right? So this is the resource that we need, which is good, but the resource is not found. That's what it tells me because it's searching in this location. So I need to create this particular resource. So what does it need? I first need to go ahead and create a folder. So I need to create a folder inside the glowing text component 24 folder. So I'll create a new folder and I'll name it CSS. That's what it tells me. Perfect. Inside the folder, I need to go ahead and create a file. So I'll say new file and I'll say .css, and that's where the file is getting created. CSS is looking all good. Now, next, what I do, I'm going to copy paste some CSS. Okay. Now, this CSS is very basic. It tells me there's a glow element. It needs an animation of type glow. And then it should change from this color, that is pink color, and flash with these colors, right? That's what it is. Simple little animation in place. Now let's go back to our Firefox. It tells me it failed to load. That's not good. That's bad. So what I'll do a Control C, do Control Y. I'll go ahead and try to build it again. And I'll close it. I'll close this browser for now. Let's hope that the demo gods are with me and the code actually goes ahead and succeeds, right? Because you never know, right? So this is good. It actually compiled. And if I click on npm start watch, let's see if now it renders, right? I'm waiting. Come on. Okay, doc. So, wow, it actually goes ahead and renders, but it's not rendering the CSS. That's not good. So let me go back and let me look at it. So it's glow.css and here it is manifest. So CSS will be rendered at once. So if I click on save, so let me look at the folder structure. It looks good. And then let me actually go back and let me refresh. It's still not glowing. So there's something wrong. So just bear with me. It was glowing CSS 24, glowing CSS 24 dot component dot order one. It looks good. Okay, live
So do we
troubleshooting.
have that glow element over there? So we are referring that glow
Ah,
element
wow. Right. We did
in
not
CSS.
add the element in the index.ts. Who said this? Perhaps it's a great catch. Who said this? What's your name?
Yeah, my name is Shiva, Shivakoteswara Sadhu.
Hi Shiva. Shiva
Hi.
saved my demo. Okay, so a big kudos to Shiva. He's absolutely right. I did not add the element in my index.ts. Right? This is what I was missing. And thanks to Shiva, okay, I'll say thanks to Shiva, I can go ahead and add the element on initialization. So I can say this dot, let me think, glowing text, right? And how do I add style? So style dot, how do I add style? Class list, Shiva, right? I think class list, or I can directly add the class list, right? So class list dot add. And then I can add this element. So Shiva is I would not call him a lifesaver, but a demo saver for me. Okay, so that's good. And thanks to Shiva, now our code component glows, right? Our code component glows. That's awesome. That's wonderful. Or else I would have been searching. I was actually opening another project to see if it actually is there, what actually happened with my code. But yeah, Shiva saved the day. I can actually change the color to yellow and it looks good. So this is our code component, right? This is how our code component looks. Our code component is ready. Now, what do we want to do? What do we want to do next? We want to go ahead and package the code component. So Control Y, right? That looks good. Now, to package the code component, I first will have to create a folder. So I'll say mkdir and I'll say solutions. I'll do cd. I should type in S or else it will take the whole day. Solutions, perfect. Next command is what I want to do. I want to go ahead and initialize a solution because what really happens out here, the PCF control actually is a solution. It is packaged in a solution. That's why it's easy to manage. All the CSS, all the JavaScript, all the node packages will be in a solution. So I can say pack, and you can already guess the command. It's pack solution. So I'm going to go ahead and copy it in and hit enter. This initialized my solution, right? This initialized my solution. Now what I want to do, I want to go ahead and add the reference. I need to go ahead and add the reference to this project. The solution is there, but I still need to add the reference to it. So just type in path. And what is the path? The path is this particular thing. That's perfect. And I'll hit enter. Okay, project solution is being added to the Dataverse project. Awesome. Next, what I want to do now, I wanted to go ahead and reference developer tools in my Visual Studio Code, but you know company policies, right? So I could not do that. So I'm using a different instance of the developer tools. So sorry for that. But yeah, this is my developer tools. So it's here, it's in my, okay, this path looks good. And here I can do an MS build, right? MS build. First time you do the MS build, T build, restore, but then down the line, you don't need to go ahead and do you just do the MS build, right? That's all I can say. Now that you have done the MS build, you might have seen that the folder structure actually went ahead and changed, right? To some extent. So if you look at solutions, in the solutions you have bin and you have a solution package. And this, my friend, is the package that we are going to go ahead and upload into our environment. So I have an environment here and I'm going to import that solution in this particular environment, right? So I can click on import solution. I can click on browse. and it's on desktop, and it's known as glowtext.pdf. It's this, uh, and it should be back. I'm going too fast. Clavin, slow down. Okay, I need to slow down. So solutions bin debug solution.zip, right? You go to the make.powerapps.com and import the solution into your Dataverse, right? While this is getting imported, right? While this is getting imported, if you are using the component in the Canvas app, you need to go ahead and configure your Canvas apps to go ahead and use the component. So I'll make a duplicate of it, and then I'll show you where you go ahead and actually activate it. So I'll click on settings. I guess it's under admin center. And understand this, this can be scoped to an environment level. So at the environment level, you can go ahead. If you're doing it in test, just activate it for test. For model driven apps, this is activated by default. Okay. For model driven apps, it's activated by default. So that being said, let's go to the environments, right? Let's select the environment that I'm working on. By the way, what's the environment? It's the default environment. So I'm going back here in the environments portal, and I'll select the default environment, and we'll check. I select it and click on settings, and under product, and I think it's under features. I'm hunting it. Sorry for that. Yeah, it's correct. It's under features. And here, my friends, you see, you need to activate this feature for the Canvas apps. Now, understand this. For the model-driven apps, you don't need to do it. It's just for the Canvas apps. In the meantime, our solution has got imported. And next, what you need to do, you need to publish all the customizations in your project. Perfect, right? So that's what you can do. So that being said, I'm losing screens now. So I don't need this. I'll get rid of it. And I'll go back here, right? It's getting published, and once it gets published, it will be available in for your pro developer, for your citizen developers to go ahead and use it. So it's published. Let's go ahead and see if we can use this in our Canvas app. So I can say demo Canvas. I can click on create, skip. It's a control, as I said. So new control. I'll say get code components. Here you see code components now, and we have glowing 24. That's what we created. I can directly import it out here. I go to the code components, I double click on it, and here, my friends, I can type in my name this time, or maybe we'll say Shiva's name. Shiva, thank you, right? Shiva, thank you. And we'll give it a big font size because we want to thank him with all my heart, right? Because he saved the demo. And then I'll say color yellow, right? So we have glowing text out here. Isn't this awesome, right? Similarly, you can add the same control in the model driven app. So I don't have model driven app in that environment. So I'm going ahead and going to show you something in another environment where I have a model-driven app configured. So just bear with me. Okay, first I'll go to make.powerapps.com. How to use it on a model-driven app? That's what I want to show you. So I'll say leave, go back. Yes, no problem. Let me go to tables first. Okay, first I'll search for the app. I hope that I'm in the right environment. So it's named as job hunting. Okay, this is the correct environment. So tables, custom table, and in the custom table, I have a job table, so that's good. I can go ahead and edit it. Let's say edit it in new tab. Okay, should just click on it perhaps. Yeah, I should just click on it, not edit it. And then comes the forms because we are going to go ahead and bind it to a control. And I'll click on edit and I'll click on edit in new tab. So I'm going to bind this control to the main form. Okay, main form in my model driven app. So just bear with me. I'll quickly go to the classic settings, right? And let me go ahead and bind it to a control, right? So I'll say done. Let me go ahead and open the app to just show you that there's nothing in there. If I just say play, active jobs, Power Platform developer, let's say that we want to bind it to the title control, right? So if I go here, this is the title control. In the title control, I can click on control and I can activate the glowing text component. So if you see out here, the first input was bound, right? The first input was bound. That is why it is bound to the field that I wanted to, that I have inserted it on, that is the title. Then comes the input type control. As I told you, input type control can be bound, or we can bind it to a field, or we can go ahead and present custom values. That is why you see that I can specify a text size. If you don't remember it, I can show you the manifest file and it will go ahead and you will understand it, right? So here you see the usage, bind versus input. Bound means what? Bound means it's bound to a control. Input means you can edit it and provide custom controls and provide custom values to it, right? I can click OK. I need to again save it, right? I need to save it. Come on, save. Is it saving? Come on, give me some feedback. Okay, let's see. Let's hope that it's saved. I'll just go ahead and publish. Publish gives me a prompt, so that's good. Maybe it's using pop-up service, right? So let's wait, let's wait, let's wait. Okay, it seems to have published. I don't trust it because it did not give me the save prompt. I'll go ahead. I'll not do any troubleshooting as of now. Empty cache and hard reload. Let's see this. Let's see this. Let's see this. Come on, please work. Whoa, it worked. So congratulations, right? First and foremost, for everyone who is there in this session. You have created your own custom control. Your own custom control in Power Apps component framework. By using basic HTML, JavaScript, and you also understood the framework. You went ahead and used the solution in your model-driven app as well as the Canvas app, right? And all that you learned was learned in 45 minutes. Now, there's a question that comes up to me often. Clavin, do you only create glow control? No, I create more, right? I create more. Another place where you can go hunting is the PCF gallery. If you are, if you're looking for something, you should first go and check if it's available in the gallery, right? Gallery has got n number of controls out here, right? From attachments, audio, etc., etc. I don't know what Australia is, but you see there are multiple controls, including HTML controls. So you can download this package, build it, and use it in your particular solution, in your Power Apps environment. That is one thing to remember. If you have an awesome idea, right? Submit an idea. If you're not a pro developer, please submit your idea, right? This is where you can go ahead and the pro developers will pick it up and they will go ahead and create it for you. So this is what you can do. Now, in addition to that, I have also created some basic controls for my company, right? So one of the basic control that I can show you is I spoke with a customer, right, a few days back. And being a Microsoft MVP, I always get feature request. And the feature request came from a user. He told me, Clavin, I want to use a control in my Power Apps component framework. I said, awesome. What control do you need? He said, Clavin, you are in the PDF company. I want a PDF viewer. He told me, like, let's take an example. This is the boring PDF viewer that is provided by out of box, right? That is provided out of the box. They wanted something different. They wanted something with which they can add annotations. So what did we do? We created a PDF viewer with which you can go ahead and add complex controls, right? This is a complex control that you can go ahead and create, right? So let it load, give it a minute, and it's actually using WASM behind the scene. So we have created a PDF viewer which actually goes ahead and renders. So if you see, I can go ahead and maybe add a signature out here. Let's say I want to add a signature. I can go ahead and actually type in a signature directly. And we provided it to the audience, right? This is ideas, right? You think about ideas. I already see, yes, using PCF, we went ahead and did this, right? These are ideas. I added signature, and at this point, I can go ahead and save it, and I can go ahead and post this back into SharePoint. Now understand this. Behind the scene, it's using node modules, no, it's using WASM, right? But just understand this. If you understand the framework, you can go ahead and build controls which are amazing. Similarly, we also shipped a control to one of our customers, which actually wants to render the control in model driven apps. So as of now, everything is slow, which actually renders the control in model driven apps. So let me actually try to refresh my browser, and let me try to open it once. Come on. Right? It's trying to render, but you get the gist of what I'm trying to tell you. We have created controls. You can create your own controls. You can go ahead and give it to your power users, and they can reuse it. So I think that's it. But before I conclude my session, I think I have some time. So why not go ahead and say a big thank you to Aro, Dhruvin, Abhinav, Prince, and Rajendra for organizing this event, for inviting me to this event, and most importantly, the people who have gone ahead and stayed back, listened to me patiently. I hope that you learned something new today. I hope. And you'll go back and create your own Power Apps component frameworks. And that being said, scan this code. You have a chance to win swags. I have already scanned it. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Clavin, for this wonderful session.
You're welcome. I lost my teams now. It's like just bear with me. Wow, okay, I lost my teams, but that's fine. I think I wanted to share my camera, but yeah. So any questions? As I told you, first and foremost, the best place to go ahead and see if there's a control out there is actually to go in the gallery and try to search for it. If there is no control, only then go ahead and create one. Don't reinvent the wheel. I'll tell you a trick. Okay, I'll tell you a trick. You are in the session. What I do, I go to the gallery and look at various code samples, right? And I rebuild it with reference to my requirement. Okay. I see, because those are the best practices that are being done, right? You need to understand this. Those are the best practices. And those best practices, you can go ahead and get it in your apps. So instead of going ahead and starting from a scratch, always go there. If you want a combo box, see if there's a combo box there. If there is a if you might find a combo box, I think there is a combo box in this particular uh, in the PCF gallery. Similarly, when it came to this particular control that I was talking about, right, which my browser freezed, this control is something that I learned from the gallery. I went and created this control, but I found few things that can make my control look better. I found it from the gallery. So gallery is always your friend. You can also post ideas, right? So always go ahead and do that. Any other questions for me?
I think, Clavin, there is one question in the chat window.
Okay.
It is related. Can we create complex control like person column or multi combo box using PCF?
Okay, let's go ahead and first check the gallery if there is already, because I assume there should be one. So you are looking for maybe person control. By the way, yes, the short answer should be yes, because what really happens when it comes to, you have web APIs, you have got HTML, JavaScript, and you should be able to go ahead and do that. There's a file picker control. One of the controls, that's color picker, I guess. But yeah, there should be one, and it should be possible. I can get more information for you maybe later, right? Whose question is this from? Maybe you just add me on LinkedIn and I can personally send you more details. I can actually point you to a sample, maybe.
Mhm. Great. All right. If we still have few minutes, so 3 more minutes. If anyone
Okay.
has any question, feel free to unmute yourself and directly ask to Clavin if you wish.
Where is Aro? I didn't hear him.
Aro just he just
step
have
out
some,
for
yeah, he just have some calls, so he just step out.
Okay,
Yeah.
no problem, no problem.
Aro would have definitely have many questions for you. So
Yeah,
it's
that's why
just
I asked, where is Aro? Because Aro has
Aro
questions.
step back.
Yeah, but yes, this was a small little thing. The way we add within the gallery or the control forms, we can add controls to the list. Yeah. So I'll try to answer those questions as well. But yeah, I think I'm on time, and I
Sure.
think the next speaker is waiting. I'll take, and special thanks, Shiva, for helping me out because I almost screwed up my demo and Shiva helped me. So that's good.
Yeah, yes, I'm here.
Yeah, so he's here, so that's cool because you never know. When you do the demos, you no matter if you're an MVP, you still have that pressure, right? You still have that pressure. So
Yes.
you practice, but yeah, it's good. But thank you, Shiva. Thank you, Dhruvin, and thank you everyone for attending my session. I'm speaking again tomorrow. That's a different topic, but it's an in-person event, so anyone around Pune can make it there, and we can meet in person, right? That's the whole idea.
Thank you so much, Clavin, for this wonderful session.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Mr. Clavin.
Clavin.
Thanks.
Thank you, Clavin.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll take it over. Okay, so okay, let me start. First of all, I'm starting the recording before I start the introduction.
I started, friends.
Okay, thanks, Rohit. Hi, welcome, Peter. Just for the audience, to introduce Peter. Peter is our IT lead within ING. One of the best visionaries that I've seen it. I've met in ING also. I've been with ING for 10 years, so you can imagine if I'm saying something. So it's already. Uh, one of the best person, best, and he tells that he has some intellectual gurus. I tell her, you are my intellectual guru in a way. So with Peter, Peter has been with banking industry for almost, I think, 30 plus years, I guess so. And with Peter, he's been IT lead for longest. For a long time. So today, Peter and I took this opportunity to go to Peter and ask him that if he wants to give us his mindset while proposing what Power BI can do it for banking. So that's something I went with him with the topic, and he gladly agreed upon to put his vision on for everyone to see across. So Peter, the floor is all yours. So we can start. Peter, your image is frozen. Is it frozen or is it something I can't see? Peter, can you hear me? Dhruvin, you can hear me, correct?
Yes,
Peter,
I can hear you.
let me see. Let me check. Peter, can you hear us? Let me give him a call. Okay. Let me see. Let me ping him on my Teams.
No worries, friends.
Yeah, just give me a second. I don't know what happened suddenly. Just give me a second. I'll give him a call. I'm pausing my video. Okay, I'll give him a call. Just give me.
Sure, no worries.
So let's do pep talks, I guess, through it. In the meantime.
Yep.
So yes, I'm trying to answer questions.
Absolutely. TCF with Power Portal. Yeah, that is the question. So yeah, so yeah, we can use that with Power of Portal as well. That's good. All right. Oh, now Peter is back.
Yeah, sorry, Prince.
Okay.
No worries.
Peter, you missed
I,
all the words that I have spoken already.
you started with a very glowing and introduction. So sorry, I missed the last part of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's have a conversation, Prince, and everybody in the call joining. Otherwise, I'm not going to present pictures or slides with you. I will tell you a bit what's on my mind in the context of the conference you are having, and we take it from there. So
Yep.
Let's start.
Yep. So Peter, floor is all yours. Do you want me to ask this interactively, or how do you want to take it forward?
Well, let me start by giving a bit of an introduction of what I do and in which context I operate. So I'm working for a bank, have been in the bank for a very long time. For the last 5 years, I'm responsible for what we call tech finance. And a finance function in a bank is a very large function. And I'll give some background on what we do around reporting, why reporting is important. And of course, I'll get to the point where Power BI fits in for us. But to give you the right context, I want to start really from the very beginning and put into your mind what it is what banks actually do. And I'm sure you all know banks. I'm sure you all have a bank account and do some business with the bank. But I want to give a specific perspective on what they do and what it looks like from within a bank. So banks manage your money for you, and if they also manage your assets for you as private individuals, and they do the same for organizations, be they other businesses or other kinds of organizations. And banks let you make payments, and they can lend you money if you want to buy a house, or if you need an investment in your company, they can lend the money to you. So the handling of money and assets in our profession, and I'm assuming the audience is one form or another of IT professionals, it is an information processing function. So nothing more, nothing less. And that means to abstract it almost to its maximum, banks do not process atoms, they process bits. So that's therefore very computer intensive, and the flow of information throughout the organization is essential for its functioning. Now, the activity of a bank is regulated. Not everybody can start a bank. You need a license, and the license is being granted by a central bank, and with that you can become a commercial bank. And these regulators are tasked to oversee the stability of the overall financial system and therefore maintain a view on the health and risk of banks. And to that effect, they want reports and data sets from their banks on their assets and liabilities, and they want the assessments of banks by themselves on various types of risk. In short, so when you have a license to operate as a bank, you have the obligation to externally report on your banking business. So the importance of financial reporting is twofold. Since all we do, between quotes, without taking anything away from the complexity or the importance, is information processing for the internal functioning of the bank, having proper internal reporting is necessary to run the banking business. And the way that is done, of course, is often via reports and dashboards. That's the internal part. On the external part, to keep our banking license, we need to meet the external obligation of various reports and also data sets to central banks as a prerequisite to stay in business. So that's a bit the context I would like to give on why reporting is so essential to a bank. And let me pause here briefly to see if that comes across and if that makes sense for you.
Absolutely, Peter. Yeah, that totally does make sense. So I have couple of things to bring it up. Like, let's say specifically when we are working with the banking sector, the main point is the transactions. Like, obviously, every transaction in the bank are should be very handled in a very secure way, as well as like uh, the transactional are with a very high volume. So how Power BI is good with large transactional based database, and what about the security if when we are developing the report specifically for the banking systems?
Yeah. The large volumes, and then I'm taking the interpretation that we're talking about the absolute size of the data. So in terms of gigabytes, terabytes, petabytes, um, is caused for us perhaps from I stand from the finance reporting function, not so much from the very large volumes of what we call our core banking systems. So individual transactions, payments, which is the largest volume, we do not use them for reporting externally or internally, because that is considered, let's say, private granular data that should reside close or with the accounts of customers. We do have large data set, but they usually accumulate over time because we keep history for a long time, and that means quite often copying daily data sets, and we all know that is a simple way to get data, but not very efficient, because even without information changing from day to day, you simply make another copy. Delta processing is more elegant, but complex in its processing. So we definitely have large data sets. Power BI is able to handle large data sets to a certain extent, of course, efficiently. And at the end of the day, it's always the combination of the source of the data set, be it a relational database or not. And I have to say, in my context, we, without exception today, we use relational databases because querying via SQL is simply for us a very good way to access data. Doesn't mean that we don't have data warehouse, data models, star schemas and things like that. But still, underlying database tends to be a relational database. So the large volumes have to be processed not just by the reporting tool, but also sometimes pre-processed in the data warehouse by creating forms of data marts. Not sure if that answers your question, and I haven't forgotten your question about the security. But maybe start first, check if that is an answer to your question about volume.
Correct. Yeah, that answers my question.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, then on security.
Just to add it, yeah. Okay. So when it comes to be high volumes, like what Peter was saying, we're doing external reporting mainly in banking sector. So it's more a summarized reporting. So we do a lot of summarization, pre-aggregation of the data to ensure that the volumes sent out to Power BI is reduced in that volume, but that is also a big volume. Aggregate data is also a big volume. It's not such a small volume, but it's still. So that's another layer that we added in between a data warehousing to a Power BI reporting perspective.
Yeah, with the addition that, and now I need to go a bit into banking specifics. That on the asset side of the bank, so when we do lending to private individuals or organizations, more and more we need to do that processing and reporting really at contract level. But because you don't lend money on a daily basis, not like the volume that you have with payment transactions, that still leads to, let's say, manageable amounts of data. Yeah. Okay. Hey, then maybe to your question on security. Yeah, security is a massive topic for everybody. Of course, we have the standard measures for the internal processing that your databases need to be secured, connections always need to be secured, data in transit needs to be encrypted. And when you copy data, you need to have measures in place that technically and functionally you are certain that your copies are correct. So with forms of hashing or reconciliations. And of course, on the output side, having proper granular user access management or within Power BI or via Power BI that people can only see the data that they are supposed to see is a crucial design aspect of our data warehouses and the reporting tool. Does that answer your question on the security?
Yes, Peter, that really helped me to understand that piece. So thank you so much for clarifying. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe then as a next elaboration on my context, a bit on what we call templated reporting and exploratory reporting. So templated reporting means for us that the output of a report is predefined. And especially for the external reporting, that happens a lot. So regulators saying, this is the information we need, this is the structure, now you fill it and send it to us on a monthly or quarterly basis. We do that with a mix of solutions, sometimes vendor-based, some in-house built, and sometimes even partly manual. And that is a reflection of the fact that ING is active in a lot of countries, dozens of countries. And as I explained to you in the beginning, we have external oversight. We have a banking license from local regulators, and they all have their own rules or interpretation of rules. So there's a rich mix of requirements that is simply not captured in one solution that encompasses all. Of course, we like to limit the number of systems, but that is that cannot be limited to one. So that's on templated reporting. Having said that, the trend for our regulators is to, well, they continue to ask for templates, but they are increasingly asking for full data sets. So no longer saying summarize it for us in your information in the report, but just give us your, for instance, credit portfolio. Just tell us what you have lent out to whom, and tell us a bit about your customers while you're busy collecting your data, and give it in such a way that it becomes a data set that is ready for processing by the regulators. I'm sure that is partly for the oversight, and partly they collect a lot of economic data that comes together with the regulators. And because of that trend, combining the data we have at head office level is actually my main challenge. I have data from many source systems, and we try to standardize that, of course, as much as possible, but still requires a lot of processing to standardize it. And one of the big things, perhaps the biggest thing that is happening in my area, is that we are building a new cloud native data warehouse that has as its scope the full bank. And so not only a financial performance view, but also the risk view. So that's a bit on the tooling and the templated reporting side. On the exploratory side, The first simple answer is that the most powerful, and perhaps the most popular, I should say, maybe not powerful, but the most popular tool being used by finance professionals is still Excel. Well, for whatever reason, that has a lot of downsides, especially the controllability and understanding what happens inside these Excel sheets is sometimes very hard. So we have a strong preference when we have to or when we want to allow exploratory reporting to not have that done via Excel but via Power BI, which means people simply get access to Power BI. And in our exploratory definition, that means they will have to provide the information themselves. So as a consequence, that means there's a lot of downloading and uploading going on, which doesn't give us a lot of control, but at least the tool itself, Power BI, is already a lot better than Excel. So that's one of the areas where Power BI is increasingly finding its way in our organization. And that's a big step forward compared to only using Excel.
Okay. I have one more question to bring up here as we are specifically talking about the banking sector. So throughout your overall experience with the banking sector, mostly in Power BI, what kind of KPIs or measures are clients creating? Like if you give us some example, like what is the basic idea? Like let's say I'm starting to define some finance dashboard or for my organization. So what are the mainly KPIs that can be used to get a better insight as a customer or as an organization? So if you can give us some insights around what type of things people are usually using.
Yeah. The view from customer side is of course different, and I'm not in the business of giving banking customers insight into the data via Power BI. That's not my remit. But to give you a flavor of the kind of dashboards that are widely used, a very important one is the category of dashboards around client activity and client profitability. So reports on a client view that says, this customer has these products and this is what he or she is doing. So building a part of the client view. And historically, I have to admit, ING is no exception to that. We were more product oriented in our organization and therefore in our IT than customer oriented. So it really takes an effort on a daily basis to bring the information from the product lines together and build up that customer view. So that's a significant part. Another important view and type of reporting that is very important, especially for our wholesale banking business. And my own background is in capital markets, to have a daily view on the P&L. So our treasury departments and where we do other forms of operations on with capital markets products. You may know that they maintain their portfolios, which needs to be reevaluated against market prices every day. And then as a consequence, daily P&L can be calculated. And there are specialized systems, highly specialized systems, that are used in dealing rooms to create that and to maintain that. But the real P&L, of course, can only come from the general ledger, because whatever your own system calculates, unless that ties back into what is actually booked and visible in the general ledger, your own system is just your own system. So that is another category of information that we produce. And perhaps the third one, but that has a bit of that's more comparable to other organizations, because every organization has its own internal structure. So it has its own set of cost centers, hierarchy of cost centers, and budget attached to it, and people and amounts of money attached to it, and on a very regular basis. The managers in the organization need to understand where they are against their budget, what kind of costs are hitting their cost centers. So that is the management reporting, management accounting and management reporting, which is also a very significant function for a large international bank as we are. So a bit of a long answer to your question. I hope it made sense.
Yes, it totally. Thanks.
The position reporting, Dhruvin. In
Okay.
short, there's a lot of position reporting of assets, of contracts. So these are the major ones, and then the like client profitability. There is a trader profitability also, like how much on each trader value that we are getting out of that from a P&L perspective also.
Yep.
Great.
Hey, maybe to elaborate a bit on how Power BI is helping us not only with the exploratory reporting and the internal dashboards, because in our strategy we see a clear potential added value for Power BI, also in the at least some forms of external reporting, and there we are convinced that maybe it's a bit of a relative development, but the capabilities of versioning reports and dashboards is very important for us, because the Power BI is very strong if Power BI professionals get the freedom to do what they're capable of. But when we produce external data and external, how the reporting is being produced, and that is done in a governed, orderly way, meaning that you design your software, you build your software, you test it, and you deploy it to production. And that also has to go for certain categories of Power BI for dashboards for us. So I like that capability. It's of course always a bit of overhead and some governance, but it is a necessary governance in our line of work. And the second aspect, but that is because Power BI is part of the Microsoft family of products, the link that it has to the collection of metadata with Purview, I see that as a really strong point also in the overall governance of being able to explain your data. Because with the right lineage and traceability of how did your data get to where it was presented to the outside world, can you explain how that actually took place? Purview seems to be really on the right track to be a strong combination with not only Power BI, but also other Microsoft products.
Yeah. Good. And Peter, how about AI? Nowadays, we all are talking about artificial intelligence in all the area. So specifically in this segment, what's the significant impact? Yeah.
You can't talk about technology without talking about AI today. It seems that almost overnight we have stepped into a new area where AI is doing things that a lot of people thought it would never be capable of. I'm as equally amazed by it as the next person. We're only seeing the beginning. So we absolutely want to combine the reporting with artificial intelligence. In order to do that, we need to have the right infrastructure. So what I described earlier, that being cloud native, in our case on Azure, in combination with Power BI, but also in combination with the products that in this case Microsoft is also offering. Yeah, that sets us up for that next stage. So I feel we are well positioned for the future. I think our initial technology choices have set us on the right path. And then the question, of course, what could we expect from it? And the obvious things would, of course, be, pattern analysis in your data for patterns that you did not see yourself or were not thinking about. Things like anomaly detection are an obvious one. But we've also seen that AI these days is so powerful that we probably can expect a lot more. And that's very exciting. So I can't wait for us to have these very large data sets that we are putting together and see what we can do with AI and Power BI on that. A small word of caution, not worry, but AI, due to the nature of the technology, is that it cannot explain itself. If you want to understand how AI came to the conclusions that it can come to, you can try and inspect a neural network, but it will not tell you a lot. So compared to rule-based systems, which can step by step explain to you how rules have been inferred and how a system has come to a conclusion, AI will not do that for you. Until now, our regulators tend to think very rule-based. So presenting data and conclusions on data where you say, well, that's just how the machine works, and it's a superior way compared to others. I'm sure that will lead to an interesting dialogue. I see it as a part of maturing and the world getting its head around AI. It is clearly so powerful and so strong that its influence will only increase. But yeah, it will be a big change for our industry. But very excited about it.
Great. Same here, because nowadays, like, everyone is talking about, every day we are hearing something new in the space of AI, and that is also, being a regular part of our daily routine and our businesses and all. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts.
You're welcome.
All right.
Yeah. Anything left over, Peter? If I'm not wrong, I think.
No, but I think the things that I had in mind, I think we covered them. So I first of all, maybe I should have started with that. Thanks so much for inviting me. I can give you context and background on our data processing and on our view on Power BI. And I hope I was able to give you some context. And I hope in the next session, we or Prince or somebody else will able to showcase some of the work that we are doing, because we're doing really, really good and interesting stuff with Power BI.
That's great. And definitely, I'm thinking maybe Prince in our monthly meetups or something. Definitely, I would like to showcase some related examples specifically into this specific area. That would be really great. And one more thing before we wrap this up, like, from the audience, if anyone has any question, feel free to unmute yourself and ask if you guys want to know anything. Stage is open, or maybe if you don't want to ask, maybe if you want to just add into chat window, that is also fine.
And for any intellectual discussions, you can always reach out to Peter on the LinkedIn. He's more than happy to have that discussion.
It's true. Thanks for the kind words, Prince.
No, yeah, but yeah, just to add upon what Peter was telling, that there's a lot of scope from a Power BI perspective on a banking sector, because usually the banks come from operational people, and operational people are very much attached to the Excel way of working. And with Power BI, when we all know that when Microsoft even was developing Power BI, it was more towards converting those self-service Excel exploratory Excels into those Power BI part. Was the first version of when Power BI came into picture, and then converting them into an enterprise solution. So that's where the Power BI is very near to those Excel, and it's very easy to convert the Excel processing into the Power BI through M queries and all those things that we all know about it. But that's something that is very much a way forward for Microsoft. Made it very easier for people to move to a version. And I think Peter, you wanted to get into that version control. I think that's something was. Do you still want to go ahead and do that version control part of the Power BI?
I think I mentioned it, right? That
Okay. Maybe
well, what I didn't say very explicit, but I can definitely say that moving away from Excel to Power BI is already a huge step forward, and getting our user community to not always rely on Excel but accept Power BI is a massive step forward, because they come from, let's say, the same product family. That is an easily accepted, a relatively easily accepted step. And then the first thing is to give Power BI on exploratory basis, but for output that is really important for the bank itself or external. Putting the dashboards under version control is the next step, simply because it is required.
Yeah.
And Power BI has these capabilities, so it's really setting us on the right path.
Thanks. Thanks, Peter, for taking out the time, to be honest, from your busy schedule. I know how difficult it is to get in 45 minutes from you. So it's thanks for taking out a time and that too on Friday evening. So thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
Hope to see you sooner again for some other more related things across in. Once I'm going to do that Power BI stuff of banking on, then I'm definitely going to call you to see what.
Very good.
What is your vision is taking to.
Then thanks for the good questions, and I wish you a great conference today and tomorrow.
Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank
and
you.
Wishing you a happy weekend. Bye.
Happy weekend.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. All right. So thank you so much everyone for being with us so far for all three sessions, and we had an amazing event for today. So for today we are wrapping up, but tomorrow we have 7 to 8 more sessions. So tomorrow the event will start at 8:30 a.m. IST. So don't miss out to attend all the sessions, and we'll also share all the details on social media handles, and soon the recording will be uploaded on our social media pages onto next week. So stay tuned with us, and we are happy to connect tomorrow, and wishing you all a very happy Friday evening. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Prince, do you want to
paste the link for the survey?
Yes, I already did in the chat window.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks a lot. Have a nice good start for our weekend. I know it's a thank God it's TGIF, but let's make it a more conference oriented TGIF than a normal party weekend. I hope we still did not take your party time. It's still 9 in India, so you still get some time to party. But please tune in tomorrow morning to have those sessions out there aligned.
All right.
See you guys in the morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day ahead. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you, Dhruvi. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.